people from the CIA, from the NASA, you know, the space industry, DOD, all these intelligence agencies are knocking on our door and saying, hey, you know, what's going on here, right? It doesn't just happen all the time.
What's going on here?
Right. Like,
what was that like when you were, how old were you when that first happened?
It's funny because I'm actually the first one in the house who met anybody from NASA, because Dad was away at work and I was home playing like Fallout 3 or something. This summer, you know, I distinctly remember, I was home. It was summer, so I was just home during the day. I'm only 15 years old. I don't have a job, so I'm just like playing games, right? And there's a ring at the door, and it's Hal Povenmire. I know they talked about him quite a bit on your last session, but it was me who answered the door. And I just remember being like, oh, here we go, you know, because the documentary had already been filmed. I don't think it aired yet. We're having all these experiences. So I'm like, Mom, NASA's here, you know, and we seriously, and call Dad, and I'm like, Dad, there's somebody from NASA here. And he's like, just entertain him till I get home. And the rest is history, you know. But this guy hopped in the car, drove 12 hours from Cape Canaveral just for a chat. And he was in our lives until the day he died, which I actually just listened to the episode. So I know he told that story, how he fell and hit his head and he had the coma. Same guy.
How?
Yeah. Yeah. But until that day, he was intimately in our lives until he died.
That day Hal showed up, how old were you?
15. Maybe 16.
Do you remember specifically what he was saying and what he was asking, and why did he tell you he was there, and how did he find out about you?
Yeah, so the funniest part is, and Dad would never tell this detail because he wasn't there. I was the one that answered the door. And I suspect he did this on purpose because he was a covert kind of individual. I think the idea was kind of look dumber than you are, you know, kind of put on a little bit of an act. And he was a little bit of a joker. He was really funny because he constantly would just crank out jokes. And they weren't like good ones either. Right. You know, he clearly had a persona. It was an act, I've come to understand. And he was a genius, but he kind of acted a little bit clueless. It was funny as fuck, man. And he rings the door and I answer, and he says, hello, is this the residence of Chris Bledsoe? And I said, do you mean Bledsoe? He said, yeah, Chris Bledsoe. And he's acting like he's looking at his paper, like he's trying to read the name. And I'm like, yes. And he shows me his lapel, and it's NASA. And he's like, well, I'm with the press corps for NASA. I drove 12 hours from Cape Canaveral. I really was just hoping to have a conversation with your dad. I just wanted to ask some questions and, you know, just things like that. And I don't remember in that moment what we talked about, but I know over the next many years what we talked about up until he died. I do know that he was at some point he was a CIA analyst.
Really?
Oh yeah, dude. A lot of these people are double dipping.
He was CIA and NASA?
Yeah. At one point. Something he told my dad before he passed away. It was kind of like a confession, like, I don't have much longer. I want to tell you a little bit more about me before I'm gone kind of thing, you know? But he was a very cool guy. He was hilarious. He was so intelligent that he had 3 PhDs by the time he was like a teenager.
Can you look him up, Steve? We could pull up his like Wikipedia and look at him. Yeah. So we can show some people what this guy looks like.
He was a really cool guy. He's one of the very like first people at NASA. I mean, he was an intern for Wernher von Braun.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Harold.
Yeah, that's him. Click his obituary. You might see us in it. You might.
Oh wow!
I know we were in his video, and he was a very kind soul. And
you want to play his video?
I swear we're in it. I could be remembering wrong, but I feel like I just recently watched it.
And loving. Oh, we don't have. There's no audio here.
Oh yeah.
That's okay.
I haven't routed it yet.
That's okay. We can look at it.
He was a funny dude. He was so intelligent.
1939 he was born. Holy smokes.
Yeah, he was like one of the young interns when Wernher von Braun was, he would be like in the same room as him. Wow. That's how far back he goes. And then there's this individual named
pull up his like Wikipedia or something so we can like read about his history at NASA, or like what he did, what his accomplishments were. Does he have a Wikipedia?
That book, UFOs and Alien Abduction Phenomenon, we're in it.
Is that his book?
Uh-huh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we're actually in it.
There's no official sort of
meaning of minor planet names. Meteoroid. Well, I can look up, and we can see a picture of them at least.
Yeah, that's him.
It's young Hal.
Yeah. So he was a
Yeah, there's nothing that there's nothing legit here that
I swear you got to skip through the obituary, man, because I feel like we're in it. I could have sworn we are.
I want to read some stuff about what he did.
Well, yeah. So do you know Project Blue Book?
Yeah, of course.
He was like the right hand man of that. Alan J.
Really?
Yeah. Hynek.
He worked with Hynek?
He was like his protege.
Oh, wow.
He was the guy that dropped in and did the debunking. So he shows up to our door, reading his, is Chris Bledsoe here? He's playing us, But over time,
he's just fishing for information, trying to figure you guys out.
Exactly, fishing for holes, and he couldn't find them.
So he was there specifically to figure out if you guys were full of shit or not.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, he was the guy they dropped in to find the holes in the story. And
so he said, okay, so you said he was visiting you guys for years after that.
Until the day he died, he was supposed to be driving to our house to spend Thanksgiving with us. And he didn't show up. And we're like, oh, well, something must have come up. And then the next day we get a call from his wife, Katie. And she said, basically, he fell and hit his head and he was in a coma. Man. But he was like, we were expecting him at our house, so. And that's.
What did he say to you about this whole phenomenon?
Well, he said more to my dad than he said to me. I mean, I was younger. I think he let a lot more out to Dad, but he knew it was spiritual. He indicated to my dad that it may be his family.
Yeah.
The beings, the entities, Now, here is something that I find particularly wild. But in about 2008 or 9, I would have been like 15 or 16 years old. Something he said to me and my family that for many years I've been paying attention to in my mind is that by the year 2025, the disclosure rollout would be on the table. All those years ago, 2008 or 2009, he said, the government's disclosure plan is going to be out on the table by 2025. And this is what he's saying. He said, and we're going to do it through soft disclosure, meaning there's going to be like a steady drip of information so as to not shock people. It's going to be like little bits of information coming out over a long span of time.
Right.
But, that we should know pretty much the majority of everything by 2025. He told me that when I was a kid.
What do you think the disclosure is gonna look like? Like, do you think that if there is government disclosure about this stuff, it's gonna be 100% accurate?
No, actually the opposite.
How so?
I think it's gonna be more or less fear-based.
What other kind of people showed up at your house besides Hal?
You name an agency: Homeland Security, DIA, NRO. Dad told you about that one.
Yeah, he taught me all about the NRO.
Yep. Air Force Intelligence, Army Intelligence, Naval Intelligence. I think I already said CIA, obviously. Mm-hmm. I've met people from FBI. I've met virtually.
They all just knock on your door unannounced?
No, that's only happened unannounced only a few times. A lot of times it's like, hey, I'm coming through the area. Can I stop by? Sure, come on. Or get our number. Hey, so and so, introduce me to this guy who told me to get in touch with you. It's not always unannounced. Yeah. That was more or less a few times. Mm-hmm. But no, mostly it's just like, hey, we'd love to come visit.
Yeah.
Okay, come on in. Southern hospitality. You want coffee? You want tea? What do you want?
Yeah.
What do you do when the CIA is knocking on your door? You're going to say no and slam the door?
Were you at the house when that guy Tim showed up?
Uh-huh.
Really?
Yep. It was in my bedroom where
What?
Yeah, I helped him with the metal. Do you remember that story? Where he put the metals?
Put it in both hands?
Yeah, I was the one who helped him do that whole thing where it was like one person at a time. Started with me. I held the metals first, and he explained to me. He had these charts where it was like basically showing that the isotopes of these metals were not from Earth. He was implying to me that this material did not come from Earth. It comes from somewhere very far away, and it's organic. He said it's alive, like it's some sort of living sentient material. And he just explained how he was able to sort of like replicate this material. And he made like $1 billion patents being able to replicate this material by...
Really?
Yeah. The very cutting edge experimental technologies like hip replacement, bone replacement type stuff, because it's organic, right? So he figured out how to not reject the bone material. It's like if you just put a metal implant in your hip, your body's going to reject it. He figured out how to make it merge because it was organic. Oh, wow. And he figured out you take... I can't remember what the material was. I mean, I'm not a scientist, you know, and he explained this to me quite a while ago, but it was like you create it in zero gravity conditions and it creates some new bond or some, I don't know.
He explained all this to you.
Yeah, but I'm not a scientist, you know what I mean? So like I don't know how to convey it properly, but yeah, so he put it in my hand and he was like, just kind of pay attention, you know, tell me if you notice anything. If you notice any sensations or any feelings or thoughts. I was like, okay. He put the other piece in my other hand and it felt like static going through me, like, whoa, but it wasn't painful. It was like when the entity touched me, it was pleasant and I felt this energy and I'm like, oh my God, I feel electricity. Yeah. And he goes, okay, let's get the next one. And we went, you know, my brothers, my sister, my mom, and then my dad. In whatever order, but we did Dad last. And then you heard the story with Dad. It was so powerful. I mean, I sat right there and I watched. The muscles in his arms were convulsing. I mean, this energy was so prevalent from this material. He was shaking and his vision blacked out. And it was basically described to us that this material it's like quasi-crystal. And I don't really know what that means, but...
So that's why we got Steve. Steve will pull it up.
But he basically said that the fact that we had a reaction from this material in the first place was evidence to him. It was a way for these covert programs to, you know, you say you're seeing an entity and then you touch this stuff and you feel nothing whatsoever, well, you're lying. Really?
So it's like a lie detector test.
Well, no, it's more so like it's reacting with your energy because you've been in the presence of an interdimensional entity. You see what I'm saying? Like that's what he told us. Like if
you have some sort of vibration going on inside you.
Yes, because you've been altered because you've been in the presence of an interdimensional entity. Wow. So he knew that we were telling the truth because we all felt this energy. And ironically, I had just started dating my wife at the time. She happened to be there. She didn't feel a single thing. She didn't feel anything from the metals. My mother did, all of my siblings and my father.
All of your siblings?
Yeah. And then my wife too. I was like, I don't care. You know, people come around to my house and ask us, I don't care who you are. You're in my house. And I'm kind of like, can she do it? You know, get her in here. I didn't care about, you know, being secret, whatever.
Did Tim show you guys anything that was like super confidential that you're not allowed to talk about?
I mean, yeah, but really it wasn't a big deal. It was just pictures of Area 51.
Oh, really?
I mean, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was, but it wasn't like he didn't show me alien bodies or anything like that. It was just pictures of Area 51. And, you know, it's like basically indicating to us that there is a facility where this kind of study goes on. But the main thing that...
Do you think it still goes on there? Or do you think they moved it all?
Area 51?
Yeah, like all the crazy studies.
I have no idea. Like he didn't show us anything that was like
mind-blowing.
Well, no, I guess what I'm trying to say is like he had an air of plausible deniability. Like he showed us photos of the facility, but he didn't show us any of the like, you know, he didn't show me a craft.
Right.
Or anything like that. And I mean, it was pretty like towing the line of what, you know, if I was a dude in a covert program, what would how far to the line could I get? Well, he got as close to that line as possible. And he told us he was going to do it. He said, I have a box. All right. And at the very edge of this box is how far I can go and what I can show you. classified information, things like that. I'm going to get right here to the edge and I'm not going to pass it. So he showed us the pictures of Area 51. He showed us his badges of Area 51. He had like actual laminates, CIA, NASA, Air Force, and Area 51 laminates, like clearance passes. Like, click, let me in the door. He showed us that. And he basically told us that, this was a very serious subject matter. It was the most classified subject. We are very seriously regarded in these intelligence communities. He said that if we had been talking just 6 years prior about our experiences and going public, that we would have probably been shot and killed. But that the times had changed and that they were loosening the protocol on how to deal with people. He basically said we have other ways of ruining your life. We don't have to shoot and kill you anymore. We can just we can do whatever we want. And he was like, we don't necessarily want you going public. Don't want you going on Facebook and talking and spreading this, anywhere or anything like that. And if you do, it doesn't matter because everyone will think you're crazy and they won't believe you anyway.
Right. That's true. That's true.
Well,
and you guys did go public with it.
Absolutely.
What did he say about that?
Nothing.
Is anybody trying to fuck with you for going? Did anybody ever, when you initially went public, did anyone try to fuck with you?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's hard to say. It's like, yeah, I mean.
And why wouldn't they want you to go public with it?
Because again, it's like there's a narrative, right? There are so many.
But if it's spiritual, what does it matter? Like, it's not good. Like, why do they care?
Honestly, like, it's a complicated question, it's because my take on that is, this may sound like it's out of left field, but it's about awakening, right? It's about the awakening of humanity. I mean, what does that mean? Well, right now we're asleep. We don't really know what's going on. We don't know the nature of things. We don't know the reality of things, right? To awaken means when we all kind of like expand our idea of things and realize there's something more than just this. There are other beings out there in other realities. There are energies and forces in other realities that are always all around us, which again brings us back to the Christ consciousness thing. It brings us back to the light thing, because if there are other dimensions and other forces, then we got to be more mindful of our thoughts and our intentions and our feelings and how we project. It's like there's more to us than just physical action. There's mental action. There's intent, spiritual intent, things of that nature. It's the kind of stuff the beings talk about. But awakening is when we realize there's more to this than just material life, that we have abilities. I mean, you know about the remote viewing stuff, right? Yeah. You're aware of all that. We can all do that. We all have some degree of psychokinesis or what's it called? Extrasensory perception. Mm-hmm. We all have this. We all have these abilities. It's just in order to access something, you have to be aware of it, right? You have to be aware that you have these abilities. You have to be aware that you are a higher consciousness.
That's what Diana Pasulka talks about in her new book. When I read that, she was going deep into how I don't think she gave up his name in the new book yet. Maybe she did, but she keeps Tim pseudonymous in both of her books, I believe, and she talks about how Tim has some sort of like daily ritual protocol he does to keep himself in tune with this extrasensory thing, whatever it is. Like if we are some sort of biological antenna that can access some sort of doorway to extra perception, he has a thing he does every morning where he like drinks water and meditates and whatever.
No coffee is part of his protocol.
That was part
no
of it.
Coffee.
No coffee, yeah.
Sunlight. You know what he told my dad?
No.
Get into Kundalini yoga.
Really?
Yeah. Kundalini yoga. They're very esoteric in NASA and CIA, man. And that's a rabbit hole in and of itself. But I want to stress, I do not want to say that all of these people in these agencies are bad. They're not. Some of them have been really good.
Of course not.
Some of them have written blurbs in my dad's book, saying he's telling the truth. Please listen.
Yeah, Jim Semivan.
Yeah, and John. Alexander.
Oh, John Alexander. Yeah. Yep.
And some of them, and Hal, he may have debunked us at first, tried to.
Hal did?
He tried to.
Povenmire. You're talking about Povenmire.
Yeah, Hal Povenmire.
Yes,
he may have tried to. They do have a job. But at the end of the day, some of these people have been very kind and very generous in trying to ensure that we feel heard and feel understood. It's like not all of these people in these programs are bad. I do believe it tends to be like Stranger Things season 4. This is my favorite example where you have this whole
you
have this scenario where like 11 losers are Mojo, and you got one element of the government trying to kill her, and then you got the other element trying to like get her Mojo back and put her out there to do her thing. It's like that. It's like some of them are bad, some of them are good. It's the way it is. So as Dad was telling you in the previous episode that he was on, he goes to the top of this hill, right? And he sees these two lights up on the horizon. And, first train of thought is like, oh, it's the sun. Wait a minute. There's not two suns. That's weird. So immediately it's fear. He turns like he's going to run, but then he looks back and a third one appears. Next thing he remembers, he's at the campfire. Okay. Well, that was the 4 hours. So here's what happened. One of those lights approached him. It came up to him. And my dad was able to recall reaching out and touching it. But it was this thing of pure living light that was shaped like maybe like a teardrop shape. Like he commonly draws it like the shape of a tear. How it's kind of rounded in the front and then it narrows. You could like a football, but also kind of like a teardrop. I don't know. But anyway, so it's like that. But then it has these spikes of light rotating around it. It's like kind of like plasma, kind of like light that is sentient. I can't describe it. I try to use different words.
Okay.
Hoping that it'll catch.
And it's just this ball of light floats up to him.
Yes, but it's massive. It's a vessel of some kind. It's like
how big would you say?
I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there, but based on his description, probably 40 foot.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
it's huge.
Wow.
In the distance, it's like covering the horizon like the sun, and it comes up to him and it's got these spikes of light rotating around it. And he even recalls like the shapes of them and he reaches out to touch it. Next thing he knows, he's in a dark room and, he can see stars all around him and he's surrounded by these entities, these 7 to 8 foot tall entities. The ones that
the big ones.
And Dad's freaking out. He's like, where's my son? Where's my son? Where's Chris Jr.? And they're like, basically, don't worry about him. We're keeping him safe. We're watching over him. And basically, they tell him all kinds of things. Like the stuff I said earlier. They said they're the guardians. They serve creation. Yes, they had the triangle on their chest. They said it represented creation or the Trinity. The idea that there are, divine forces creating us, And they basically said that they protect us from dark forces. I mean, they guide our evolution. Exactly the stuff I said earlier. This is the stuff they told him in that span of time.
In this black, dark room that he was in?
Well, yeah, I mean, he was inside the light. It was like,
right.
He could see the stars around him. It was like translucent. Imagine you're in something like let's just say a ship. Maybe not necessarily technological. I mean, we're talking about dimensional entities here.
Right, exactly.
But we'll just say for conversational sake, it's a ship, right? Mm-hmm. And you're looking around and it's like, it's dark because you can see all the stars around you, but there's no walls. It's like translucent, like glass. You can just see everything around you.
It's like he stepped through a portal or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And wherever you thought is where it would go. They let him do it. Think wherever you think you'll go. You control with your mind. It's like you're connected to this. It's a kind of dimensional technology that we don't have, And they explained to him, they said the people in power of the world, they don't like us too much. They're very afraid of us, but they can't really do anything about it. And we're the guardians. We're here to help. And many years went by before he really learned much more about their intentions, because like he explained, he came back, the 4 hours was over. And over the next 5 years, we would be having experiences. Like I heard my sister explain it. It was like poltergeist activity in the house.
Before we go there, I want to ask, so that hypnotic regression, that was the first hypnotic regression your dad did, where he kind of like, where he just remembered what happened.
Right.
Why do they wipe your memory?
Why?
Even do they? Maybe they don't. Like you said, maybe it's just trauma. You know what I mean? Maybe it's just your own mind doing this to save yourself the anxiety.
I think in the case of my dad, it could have been trauma. I don't know, because I will say it took him about a year and a half between that initial night and then the actual hypnotic regression because of the Discovery Channel investigation, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the one good thing that came out of all of the Discovery Channel stuff was the regression. Everything else, don't care about it. But
did your brother do a regression?
No.
No?
No. None of us kids have had. I mean, I've had like a past life regression, if you believe in that kind of thing. But no, I haven't had this kind of, you know, here I am, I'm going on.
Why didn't your brother do it?
It wasn't offered.
Oh, really?
Yeah. As far as I know. Or he didn't want any part in it. He didn't want to go forward with it. I don't know. I mean, it was like 16 years ago.
Yeah. He was only 17.
Yeah. He would have been about 18 by the time the documentary came out. Okay. But anyway. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I don't have recurring dreams. And that I haven't had missing time in all three of my siblings. I mean, there's got to be things floating around up in there that I don't remember. I mean, there's got to be.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you, like, I have a lot of recurring dreams about being in that dark room surrounded by these entities.
You do?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Now, it's crazy. You asked me just a little bit ago if I've had experiences on the level of my dad or whatever. No. I have seen entities, but it's like a flash. It's not like Dad where they stop and they say what's up and they show you the symbol on their chest and they're like, it's not like that. It's more so like I see it and I lock eyes with it and then it's gone. Or like one time.
Like where?
And around the house, in the living room, in my bedroom, front yard, walking through the yard, wherever, it doesn't matter. It's happened on 3 or 4 occasions. There was one time where this is one of those things that I want to recover, a memory, you know, because I know there has to be more to it. When you see these entities, it's like time clearly works so differently for them. I mean, you just see them in the way they pop in and they shimmer and then they're gone. It's like, I feel like there's something more to what happened. But I was sitting there with my friend and we were sitting like, it's like a 90-degree angle. Like you have the wall here and my back's to this wall, his back's to that wall, but we have the same line of sight. You see? Mm-hmm. I know the camera might not see it, but you see it. We're looking the same direction, but we're at an angle. Mm-hmm. And we're just talking and something touched me. And I'm like, what the hell? And I pull my shirt up and I show him and I had a red mark where there was like a handprint on my ribs. Like literally just like this sensation of, it was like magnetism, like warm electrical magnetism touched me. It wasn't painful. It was actually kind of pleasant. And I saw the mark. And I'm like,
pleasant?
Yeah. Like
felt good?
I mean, not like good, but it wasn't painful.
Okay.
Like you would think, you know, electricity would be. I can't describe it. It was like not painful. It wasn't damaging. It was just warm, but it felt like electricity. And I lifted my shirt. There's a mark. My friend's looking at me. And then we both look in the corner and there's an entity standing there. Its head is no higher than the doorknob. It looks exactly like the little one that my dad and my brother saw. Big round head, big round eyes, and its hands are like down by its side, but it's translucent and it's shimmering, and then it just disappears. Poof. And my friend looks at me and he's like, you just saw that too? And I'm like, yeah. And it was crazy, you know? And there's a couple other instances where it's been like that, where I see it and then it's gone. There's one time where something touched me on the shoulder from behind and I turned around and there was an orb, like kind of like a glowing orb. I didn't see the entity that time.
What that time when you felt it touch you and you looked behind you and it was a glowing orb, where were you? Were you outside? Was it daytime, nighttime?
I was just inside the house, like
inside the house,
in the kitchen.
And there was an orb right behind you.
It was in the kitchen. Yeah. And then, well, the kitchen and into the, like not a formal dining room, but like a formal living room. It was weird. It's like the kitchen and the formal living room were together. So I'm in the kitchen. I turn around. It's over in the other room, but it's one big room. And then there's a couple other times, my sister and all of my siblings, we've all seen entities like that. But it's never like Dad. With Dad, they get out and they have a message, you know? They have a whole thing. Could it be because the regression? I don't know. It's genuinely painful to consider a worldview that is counter to your own. People's egos are grasping firmly on what they've been taught their whole life they're supposed to believe. This is what I said in the beginning, Danny, is if we want to awaken, if we want to understand what's really going on here, we have to humble ourselves to higher forces. We have to understand there are things out there that are bigger than us.
Well, even the Vatican has accepted the idea of aliens now. Like, I forget who it was, but somebody at the Vatican was explaining how, we can't limit, if you are religious and you believe in God and you believe in a higher creator, like, you can't limit that just to Earth, right? Like, you can't limit God's creativity just to human beings. There has to be, you have to give him the benefit of, whoever it is, the benefit of the doubt to have created something outside of what we see every day on planet Earth.
Right. Yeah.
And that's coming from the Vatican. If there is something that is spiritual that people have witnessed, like you and your dad are witnessing, is it possible that there also is a bad version of it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There has to be. If it's just the nature of reality. If there's something good, there's something bad. And it's like there's varying degrees of that. But it's like, it's like the absence of hot is cold, right? Or the absence of love is fear. It's, yeah, of course. I do think that there's some negative entities and things like that. But I don't think it's anything to worry about. I really don't. I've never come face to face. I mean, I've seen some shadow entities and things like that. Like, I've been around people where I've seen things that were attached to them. But I think for anybody out there who's curious about entities and if you're like, would I experience a good one? Would I experience a bad one? This and that and the other. I think that depends on what kind of person you are and particularly what you're going through. What energy you're putting out. If you're a good, kind, loving, joyful, positive person, why would you be worried about negative entities, right? But let's say, somebody who's deep into a very serious addiction or abuse problem or some sort of very negative, violent scenario or, spouse abuse or whatever scenario in your head that's really bad. Well, maybe then I'd be worried about some sort of negative entity. I mean, it really depends on you.
Did anybody you ever talk to, like some of these NASA people or anybody else, did they ever say anything to you about negative, like evil entities?
Yeah.
Or bad ones? What would they say about that?
Well, at Skinwalker Ranch, that's one thing Colonel Alexander told us was, like, at Skinwalker Ranch, they were having some pretty spooky experiences, like things like much about the ranch, right?
Yeah.
How like multiple billionaires have bought it since then.
Yep.
To run experiments there, and that's one of the things is like they constantly are trying to like gotcha with the phenomenon, they're trying to like trick it. They're trying to get it on camera. They're trying to like they just think that it isn't aware, I guess. But the beings would like constantly outsmart them and do things like disable their cameras and turn off the lights and just do things to really scare them. Definitely harm some animals, things like that.
Harmed animals?
From what I've been told, yeah. There's been some animals that have been harmed at Skinwalker.
Yeah, like the cattle mutilations. Do you think that has to do with these entities at all?
I don't know, because it's like the idea about the phenomenon at Skinwalker Ranch. Some people say it's because of Ute, Native American black magic practices from centuries ago. Really dark kind of things lingering there. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't have much experience with negative entities. I only have experience with positive entities. Right. I can't say why that's there, why bad things are happening, but I don't think people should worry about negative entities. It's just like it says in the Bible, right? We have dominion over spirits. You don't have to be Christian for that to be true. I'm not Christian, but I believe it to be true. I think we have power and dominion over entities. You know?
Really?
Yeah.
How do we have power and dominion over them?
I believe we're very special. I think we're very, very special. I think that there's a lot more to being made in the image of God than people realize. I think we are literally made in the image of God. As a matter of fact, if there was a piece of wisdom that I would love to leave with everybody, that I would love everybody to contemplate on and really study this phrase and understand what it means and where it comes from, you'll find that the Rosicrucians and even the Freemasons and all these secret societies are obsessed with this phrase because of its importance. And it's as above, so below. And it's the concept that the microcosm mirrors the macrocosm. Or in other words, if you think really hard about space, right? You think about galaxies and solar systems, how they have an inherent order to them at the highest level, right? But then you think really small, and you think about the cells in your body and the atoms. They have a similar order. At every plane of reality, higher and lower on this infinite sliding scale, on this Fibonacci scale, so to speak, right? This spiral pattern, Matt. It's fractal. Reality is constantly fractal, all the way up and all the way down. And I believe that that is true in every dimension and in every plane. And I do believe that we are fractals of God, that we are all infinite sparks of God. It's like the ancient Hindus said, it's Indra's net, right? You have this one original consciousness, and it's personified, or not personified, but shown as this net, and then you have a drop of dew on every intersection of the net, and the sun is shining on the water, and that sun is equally reflecting off every piece of dew. That's me and you. That's all of our consciousness reflecting. There's only one light, right? It's God. It's the mind. It's the universe, whatever. You call it whatever you want to call it. We said this in the beginning. It doesn't really matter so much how you believe it. Reality is reality. You can kick and scream about my God's better than yours all day, but something's up there. I tend to think this is how it works. It doesn't care what you think. It doesn't care what you believe. It cares how you are. Cares how you vibrate. Cares how you act.
Right.
What you put out into the world. But anyway, so I believe that I think that we are reflections. I think the material world is only a mere reflection of the higher eternal world. Another example of this, Plato, most famous philosopher of all time. He had a whole story about it called the allegory of the cave.
Yep.
He's like, imagine you're in a cave and the sun is shining in the cave. The sun represents the eternal reality. It's invisible, so to speak, but also like it's kind of the source of light. It's symbolized by the sun. It's shining into the cave. Me and you are in the cave. We see the shadows on the wall. Me and you, we live here in the cave, symbolizing, material reality. We think the shadows are the real thing, but really it's out there in another dimension or outside of the cave, right? And it's like you have all these different stories around the world basically saying like, this is the illusion. There is something real. There's something else. There's something else that's not the illusion. We are in the illusion. Or as the Hindus would say, we are all in the dream of Brahma. We're in the mind of God. Or as the Hermetists and the Rosicrucians would say, the universe is simply the mind of God, and we're each a thought in it. Okay, so the question is, why do we have dominion over spirits? Because of that. Because we are a piece of the Creator. We are linked to the mind of God through our mind, because we are a piece of that mind, right?
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
That's why we have ESP. That's why we have psychic abilities. That's why healings and miracles occur, because we are divine. I believe we're divine. I think we all are. I think that's the truth about all of it. All religious myth, all the wisdom traditions, and every bit of it. I think that we are all special fractal pieces of, you could say, the God mind or whatever you want to call it. Doesn't matter.
What's the closest you've ever seen one come?
Me?
Yeah.
Feet, like me and you. Maybe a little, maybe more like the wall.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, like right over my head. Like,
that night that I was out there with your dad, a couple times there, I was like the shooting star above our heads, like not maybe like 100 feet above us or something like that. It looked like a shooting star. It didn't look like an orb.
right.
But I never saw something like just like floating around and moving.
Oh,
That
yeah.
close, at least.
Yeah, I've seen that quite a few times. And like I said, entities like really close, like super close, touch you and then poof, magic trick disappear.
That's so wild, man.
Yeah.
And like another thing I don't really understand is the whole paranormal aspect to it. So there's a lot of different paranormal things that have happened inside your house that your dad or your mom talks about specifically. Mm-hmm. And I think your sister said that she experienced it too. If these things are good, why are they coming across like in these terrifying forms, like shadow figures or deep voices that are like, it seems like it's terrifying.
Yeah, it does. But again, it's like funny in the Bible, for example, anytime an angel appears, what's it say? Be not afraid. Right? I think that there is a quality to nature that is unfathomable that we don't understand, but that does not equal evil or not good. It's like this great example that I've heard about nature is when a tree drops all of the acorns, and some acorns are just not going to make it in the cycle of life. They're going to be snuffed out and they're not going to get to bloom into a tree. And it's just the way that it is. It doesn't mean that nature's evil. It doesn't mean that nature's cruel. It just means that there's an order to it that we don't quite understand. And I think that applies to the beings, It's like when you see a shark, it's my biggest fear. I just see a shark and it makes me feel weird.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like sharks, man. And there's just some things you see and it gives you a gut reaction, but it doesn't mean it's evil. It's just a part of nature and it exists in its hierarchy and it is what it is, but we just don't understand these beings. Anything we don't understand is going to be scary, but I can tell you their actions are very positive. I mean, it's in Dad's book. I know so Dad is very humble about these things and he's never going to go into great detail about these things, but I feel like he's my dad, so I just want to talk about the cool shit he's done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
But like, there have been quite a few people who have come around and have experienced these entities, you call them whatever you want, beings, orbs, whatever. And miracles have occurred. Cancer.
Yeah, I read that in the book, and we talked a little bit about it at the end of the podcast.
There's quite a few of those scenarios where, and again, it's like, does Dad have healing abilities? I don't think it's like that. I think everybody has healing abilities, and I think it's like the reason it happens so much around Dad is because he asks the beings. He gives it to them. He believes it's them. He completely, never once in my entire life has Dad ever looked at me and said, I healed someone, I have a healing ability. Never. He will never say that. He believes everything ever weird that's ever happened around him or to him or from him is 100% the beings. It's exactly like what I said in the beginning of the episode. I think what's important is we humble ourselves to the higher forces. Right? We understand that there are things outside of us. Maybe they look scary. Maybe we don't understand them. But they're healing cancers and healing strokes and all kinds of other amazing things. Right? But I think at the end of
You think it's fear-based?
Yeah, I think the general picture is to create this narrative that we are all tiny specks of pretty much nothing, and that there's no hope, there's no any inkling of spiritual evolution. And why do I think that? It's because it's what the lady told to my dad. It's in the book. It's in the regression. It's what she said. I mean, it's the message. She said that there is a force. She didn't say who. She said that there are people at the helm of humanity. She didn't say the Illuminati. She didn't say the Bilderbergers. She didn't give a name, right? She just said there is a dark force.
A dark force at the helm of humanity.
At the tippy top, yep, controlling humanity, there's a dark force. And they are using biblical scripture, namely the book of Revelations, to sort of script events on a global stage to manifest a cataclysm, and that there would be a great deception. That this deception would be basically to paint the phenomenon in a negative light. It's
who is this dark force? Are these human beings?
Yeah, that's. I mean, are they? I don't know. Maybe it's an egregore.
A what?
An egregore. The concept that, like, you know, it's like the devil. It's like if enough people believe in something, it gives it power. It's like,
right.
You know, enough people believe in a specific concept. Oh, there you go. Yeah,
Steve.
Perfect. Wow, you're awesome.
Egregore. That's the first time I've ever heard that word. An egregore is an esoteric concept that refers to a non-physical entity that is created by a group of people. The term comes from the ancient Greek word egregoros, which means wakeful.
Yeah, it's like the devil. Like, is there really a force that can oppose God?
Keep scrolling. Keep scrolling. I love this. What is this?
I don't think so.
Scroll up a little bit more, Steve, to where there was some photos on the top right. Yeah, click that picture of the brain. What is that? So this is like a hive mind type thing?
Yeah, it's like it's as simple as this. It's thought forms.
Thought forms are made up. Okay.
But these
thought forms are made up of the thoughts, ideas, and feelings that the group inadvertently sends out through their collective group mind or collective consciousness. It is hard to create one on purpose because they are often unintentional. Interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
The mind's a very powerful thing. And I think if enough people believe in something, it more or less can become true, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
And, you know, if enough people believe that the phenomenon is so negative and so scary and so warlike, and they're jamming our radar and they're mutilating cattle and all this stuff that they're telling us that's going on through these official, quote, channels, it's spreading this very dark, fear-like narrative, you know, and that's kind of like it's like I don't know how to get the words out. I'm trying to find the words, but it's like a spiritual war, honestly, like the whole phenomenon thing.